It's time for Brush Street Beat, presented by McLaren Health Care. Today's guest is Tigers play-by-play announcer Matt Shepard. Matt, it's great to see you as always. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Daniella, you and Art look better in person than you do in those cardboard cutouts at Comerica Park, but both are pretty special.
I don't know, Art's is pretty good. That's quite the cutout. So he might look better in the cutout.
I don't know. He looks like someone's goosing him, but I love Art's reaction to everything.
Well, I lead a strange life. What can I say?
Oh, I've known that for a while.
Yeah, you certainly have.
I'm learning. I'm learning every day. Shep, let's talk some Tigers baseball. Last night, we saw Tarek Skubal on the mound for the Tigers, and it was a really good outing, aside from the two-run homer that he gave up in that first inning. Maybe this is the fan speaking in me, but I really would have liked to see him come out for that seventh inning. Gardy decided to take him out after 6 innings, but it was really good. This is something that we haven't really seen out of Tigers pitchers. He went a full 6 innings.
Look, this is not just the fan in me, but it's the broadcaster in me. I'd love to see him go longer as well. I wanted Casey Mize to go longer in Chicago as well. But look, I understand why the Tigers are doing it the way they're doing it. It's just tough for us when we see young guys, we see that potential, and we see how well they're doing during specific starts that we want to see them go a little bit deeper. Brady Singer was really good for Kansas City. He was the same pitcher in 2018 draft that where Detroit produced Casey Mize and Tarek Skubal. Kansas City actually got a few pitchers out of that one. One's in their minor league system and one's out of their bullpen, Chris Buvich. But overall, I think you're starting to see why so many of us have been excited to see Tarek Skubal, Casey Mize continue their growth. Mize had a no-hitter going into his last start into the 6th inning against Chicago. I think Skubal's had 2 really good starts out of the last 3. Daniella, what I like most is in his last start when he got beat up through 2 innings, look at how he responded. And before people say, oh, it's the Kansas City Royals, understand this. Whit Merrifield, Adalberto Mondesi, Salvador Perez, Hunter Dozier, Michael Franco. Those top 5 hitters in that Kansas City lineup are really good. They've got power. At the top, they've got speed. It's a team that keeps you off balance because they have more steals since 2013 than any team in baseball. They like to put the ball in play, and all those guys have been riding a red-hot bat over the last week and a half. So it was a really good outing for Tarek Skubal.
Matt, the thing that I like most about Mize and Skubal is not so much on the field, but how they react no matter what happens on the field, their post-game comments. And I thought Skubal was talking about, I don't know if it was Chris McCuskey asked him last night about the fastball or did you throw too many or whatever. And he basically said, no. Essentially, I can never throw enough fastballs. The fastball is my out pitcher. Can you talk about what you have witnessed since they've been called up? I don't know if it's a maturation process, but they just seem calm and wise beyond their years.
I think they know they belong, Art. That's the bottom line for both these guys. Here's what I like about Casey Mize. I think Tarek Skubal's a quieter version. I think Casey Mize is, I don't want to use a locker room term. I don't want to get in trouble, but I think he's a tough guy. Okay. I think he's a mentally and physical tough guy. I think he's one of those guys who's willing, when he gets older, who's willing to go in and tell people, look, you're not taking the ball from me. All right. Stay in the dugout. You're not coming out and crossing the white line, similar to what Justin Verlander and Jack Morris have been in Tigers' past. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as those guys. I'm just telling you from a mental makeup, I think that's the kind of guy he is. I think he gets really upset when he gets taken out of games. I don't think he wants to keep his bullpen in a tough jam like they did in Chicago. He wants to finish that inning. It wasn't even a tough jam, but he wanted to finish the inning. I think he takes it really personal, and I think Tarek Skubal's the same way. I think Matt Manning and Alex Faedo are very similar in that regard, and that's why those 4 guys are so highly regarded. It's not just the stuff on the mound. They've got really good stuff. Look, if I'm Tarek Skubal and I'm throwing 98 on the outside corner with my fastball, you're damn right I'm going to keep throwing it. If I'm Casey Mize and I've got a fastball that moves as much as it did against Chicago, and that's why he was successful. It wasn't his splitter, okay? It wasn't his cutter. It was his fastball and the late movement he got against those Chicago hitters. That's the best offense in the American League. You can make the case, Art, it's the best offense in baseball. And Casey Mize had them no hit through 5 innings. And that's impressive. I don't care where you are or who you're talking about. You do that against that team in just 78 pitches. You've done your job. So that's what I like about these guys right now. What I've seen from them is not just a mental toughness, but I love the physical makeup and the willingness to say, you know what, this is my game.
Shep, looking at the Tigers hitting from last night, or should I say the lack thereof, they only had 2 hits on the night. What do you attribute that to? We know Singer was pitching well, but this team seems to be pretty streaky when it comes to the hot bats. It's like one game that they can't stop getting hits, and then a game like last night, they only get 2.
No, I agree with you. Victor Reyes has been in a slump. Okay, he's 1 for his last 19. The 2 consistents have been Jeimer Candelario and Willie Castro. Willie Castro's got a 6-game home hitting streak. Jeimer Candelario, you guys have talked about it, the AL Player of the Week last week. You're looking for balance, right? Losing Jonathan, Willie Castro's moved up to the number 2 spot in the lineup, but at some point that's going to affect your lineup somewhere down the line, right? Just like CJ Cron leaving the 4 spot. We think, oh, it's great. Scope hit there for a little bit, and then Jeimer Candelario, no problems. No, it affects every other part after that and some of it before. So originally you're looking at Reyes and you're looking at Scope and you're looking at Cabrera, then you're looking at Candelario, then you're looking at Castro. Well, now you lose Scope. Castro moves up to 2. You miss the guy at the number 5 and the number 6 spot. Jorge Bonifacio, he's caught on a little bit, but then it affects the 6, 7, 8, 9 guys because Bonifacio was hitting a little bit lower when Scope was in the lineup. So I think that has something to do with it. Obviously, the really good pitching Detroit has faced has something to do with it, and it's going to be really difficult today because they've got Shane Bieber opposing them. When the 3 of us got together before the season started, I remember this question from Art Regner. He said, give me the 2 best pitchers Detroit will face this year. My answers were Jack Flaherty of the Cardinals, and look how good he was, and Shane Bieber. Shane Bieber has started 1 game against Detroit this year. It was August 15th. He threw 7 shutout innings and struck out 11. He's 4-1 in his career with a 1.65 ERA against Detroit. He's the real deal and will probably win the Cy Young. So it's going to be a really tough challenge tonight too, Daniella.
Matt, a real quick side note. Whenever Casey Mize is throwing a no-hitter, you cannot mention it enough on your telecast. He wants you to talk about it. I know that.
I don't have a problem with that either. I mean, I was, had he gotten through the 6th, I was going to get it. I was going to talk about it because I don't think I have that much influence, Art. If I can't get my kids to meet their curfew, I don't think I can fix Casey Mize throwing a no-hitter or not. So I'm just telling you, there's no way that the announcer influences that. Some people think it's taboo. I don't think it's a big deal, but I think it depends on the time. If he's got a no-hitter through 5, I don't think it's as big a deal. Brady Singer last night retired the first 9 hitters he faced, for example, first 10 hitters he faced. I don't think until you get to probably through that 6th inning that it's even worth mentioning. It has nothing to do with jinxing a pitcher. It has everything to do with the moment and how impressive it is.
We talked about some of the hitters, but we have to mention Jeimer Candelario. I know I asked you this question too before the season began. Is he on notice? I mean, is this a make or break season for him? And he has absolutely turned it around. I mean, he just, not only is he's a leader on and off the field. You can tell. How impressive has this turnaround been for the Candyman?
Well, let's just put it this way. You and I have been in every professional locker room in this city for a long time. I think he's the nicest guy, arguably the nicest guy I've ever met as a professional athlete. Truly looks at you, listens to you, engages in you with a conversation. You're right. He's starting to be more of a leader. You can see him on third base. You can see him encouraging Willie Castro, encouraging Isaac Paredes or Jorge Bonifacio or whomever may be at the plate or whomever may have just gotten a hit. What he's been able to do, Art, when he started 0 for 17, and to be able to come out of that, how difficult that is mentally, knowing that you're on notice. He was. I mean, here's a guy who was the number 1 prospect in the Chicago Cubs organization. He comes over in that trade for Justin Wilson and Alex Avila, along with Isaac Paredes. There's a lot expected of him. When he first came to the Tigers, I think he reached base in 23 of the 27 games he played. And then the next 2 years, he wasn't very good. So, yeah, you're trying to figure out, if you're the Tigers front office, do we turn the page on a guy like this, even though he's still young and he's still valuable because he can play both corner infield spots, and he's a switch hitter. How many guys do you find who can do that and become that valuable? So to be able to bounce back like this shows you the type of mental fortitude he has, and I think his work ethic. He has worked exceptionally hard at getting through that time and staying confident in yourself. Watch him as he's in the box. If he takes a pitch or fouls one off, he's constantly reminding himself of keeping his hands in and doing certain things to keep that focus. Where did he get it from? Well, it probably helped working with some guys during the pandemic. I think Robinson Cano was one of those guys that he worked with, but it could not happen to a nicer guy. I'm super happy because what it can mean is a guy for Detroit moving forward, a position player moving forward. We think they have a number of them. Willie Castro being a guy. Down the road, Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green, for example. Victor Reyes is in that discussion for sure. So those are really important pieces. We talk about pitching a lot of the young guys coming up. You need those everyday players. Jeimer Candelario is still young enough and a young major leaguer to not only be a leader, but to be a productive guy in that lineup every single day.
Shep, one last question for you. Let's look ahead to this series with Cleveland. As you mentioned, Shane Bieber is on the mound tonight. Their pitching is really good. They lead the AL in almost every pitching category. So not just Shane Bieber, but they're hanging on to a wild card spot. The Tigers are 4.5 games back. What are you expecting to see in this series?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Danielle. This is a huge series for Cleveland. Now, remember, there was a point where Detroit had lost 20 games in a row, right, to Cleveland. It was borderline embarrassment. And then they beat them on the road 2 out of 3. Remember, they were down 5-0, and they came back. They beat them. They won 2 out of 3, and that kind of propelled them into a nice winning way for a period of time for the Tigers. Runs are going to be at a premium. There's no doubt about it. So guys like Mize tonight, guys like Michael Fulmer tomorrow, have to be better and have to elevate their game. And I know Casey Mize loves throwing against these types of guys. Remember, he faced Lucas Giolito in Chicago last time out, and Giolito had thrown a no-hitter earlier this year. How do you get to Shane Bieber? It's a really tough question to answer because he doesn't give up many homers. I think he's given up 6. And he's not a guy who walks anybody, and that's a problem. So you're going to have to earn your way on, and once you get on, the Tigers are going to have to stay aggressive on the base paths. Expect them to be put in motion a little bit more, I would think, with this team, even though Roberto Perez, who did not play against the Cubs, if he does play, he's thrown out 8 of 11 runners. This is a guy who does not let the ball get by him, hasn't had a pass ball in, I think, at 149 games, hasn't made an error in like 111 games. So this Cleveland team is really good defensively and really good pitching. The good news is they're not very gifted offensively either. So if that's the case, you should have some low-scoring games, and that should keep Detroit in it because I think Casey Mize has found his way. I think he's going to be really good tonight. Michael Fulmer had something to work on, something on which to build in his last start. So I think this is going to be an exciting series, but it's a really important one from Cleveland. Detroit got a chance to play spoiler.
Casey Mize on the mound tonight. You guys, you can tune into the game. First pitch is at 7:10 on Fox Sports Detroit. Pregame starts at 6 o'clock. Join Shep and the rest of the Fox Sports Detroit broadcast crew. Thank you so much for joining us, Shep, as always. And a big thank you to McLaren Health Care for presenting Brush Street Beat right here on The Word on Woodward.